We need some help. The funding basically all fell through.
Tonight, running out of time and funds. Why this language revitalization pole might never get off the ground.
45 years ago, our elders got it right. They decided that we needed an institute of Indigenous learning.
Plus, fostering help and hope. An Alberta institution celebrates 45 years of education and support for those with substance issues.
Good evening, I'm Rick Harp. Welcome to APTN National News. We start tonight in Manitoba, where an underwater search for 2 young men wanted in connection with 3 murders in British Columbia has come up dry. Teams of RCMP divers have called off their search of the Nelson River near Gillam, Manitoba, for Cam McLeod and Briar Schmagelski. The underwater search was launched after the discovery of a damaged aluminum boat over the weekend near a spot where the suspected killers were last seen almost 2 weeks ago. Although the heavy police presence around Gillam has been reduced, some officers remain in the area. Meanwhile, a wildfire in southern BC has prompted an evacuation alert as fears escalate that the fire could spread quickly due to hot and dry conditions. Wildfire officials estimate the so-called Eagle Bluff fire has grown to over 225 hectares. The warning to evacuate applies to residents in several districts of the Okanagan region. The cause of the blaze is still under investigation, though officials do believe human activity is to blame. To Alberta now, where for the past 45 years, the Nietzsche Institute has trained its mostly Indigenous students to work in areas like addictions and counseling. And with a long list of accomplished alumni, the Institute is getting set to celebrate its success. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
In 1973, Eric Shirt wanted to help people who suffered with addictions, drug and alcohol. With a lot of effort, he founded the Poundmaker Lodge in St. Albert, just north of Edmonton, on the site of a former residential school. The lodge was successful in helping people return to healthy lives. 1 year later, Shirt, now the chief of Saddle Lake Cree Nation, started the Nietzsche Institute. He wanted to help train people to help those who are addicted.
We had a large number of Native people who were wanting to work in the field of alcoholism, and that's where Nietzsche was developed to meet that need of people who needed the skills, the attitudinal changes, the counseling components to bring relief to people suffering from the disease of alcoholism.
Marilyn Buffalo is the CEO of the Nietzsche Institute.
45 years ago, our elders got it right. They decided that we needed an institute of Indigenous learning, and they knew that we were finally escaping the residential school era, and our people needed to be indigenized, or whatever the buzzword is today. Our elders got it right.
Every program offered here offers spiritual growth and grounding, incorporating Indigenous traditions and values. Graduates have gone on to become doctors, lawyers, MLAs, and more.
What I find about the students is they help each other. They're very supportive. When they arrive here, they go into a sweat lodge, and we have feasts on a regular basis, and elders that come and support us. And so with that, it's kind of like a family life environment.
From October 5th to the 17th, the Nietzsche Institute will be celebrating their anniversary in Enoch Cree Nation. Speakers include famed architect Douglas Cardinal and filmmaker Georgina Lightning. New classes start September 1st. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, St. Albert, Alberta.
Back to BC now, specifically Port Alberni, where back in June we brought you the early transformation of an 800-year-old cedar tree into a language revitalization pole. And while work is well underway, there's concern over whether it will ever get off the ground, literally. That's because finding the funding to raise the pole has proven challenging. And as APTN's Laurie Hamlin reports, time is rapidly running out.
Heavy rain sent the team of volunteer carvers home early for the day. But Les Doran from the First Nations Education Foundation, who commissioned the totem pole, showed us all the detailing that has been done in the last 2 months.
We're about 20 feet into the 61-foot project, so it's looking good. It really is. It's exciting.
Although the pole is now starting to come to life, the totem may not be erected on time. $50,000 needs to be raised in the next 2 weeks, or delays in structural engineering and site prep work mean a real chance that the totem won't be raised this year.
We need some help. The funding basically all fell through. We've been relying on in-kind donations. We've been working feverishly with the province and with the feds to try and pull some funding together. The feds put $50 million into Indigenous languages, and we'd applied to that, and oddly we don't fit into their program. This is language revitalization, a United Nations project to revitalize language around the world for every Indigenous person on the planet. So I don't know how we don't qualify. I struggle with that.
The language revitalization pole is being carved as a symbol of reconciliation. Some of the volunteers went to residential school where Canada tried to wipe out their culture and language. Dorn says he's disappointed with the lack of support from all levels of government.
Municipal, provincial, and federal have all been weak. Here we are in Port Alberni, as the crow flies, about 3 miles from where the former residential school was. I haven't seen a councillor or a mayor down here. We haven't had a whole bunch of input from anybody to show any interest, to display any type of interest. And that to me is a little bit disturbing. But I think that, yeah, it's going to come. I really want to believe that it's going to come. The magnitude of this is just way too big. This language revitalization pole is going up.
The group is hoping all Canadians and Canadian corporations can help contribute to the Raise the Pole campaign. Lori Hamlin, APTN National News, Port Alberni.
Time for our first quick break. When we come back, an update on the growing tension surrounding the Muskrat Falls hydroelectric project. Stay tuned.
Here's your Wednesday weather outlook, beginning with St. John's, 15 and rain, Fredericton mostly sunny and 28. Kuujjuaq, 17, cloudy and rain, Nain, 10 degrees with some rain. Chibougamau, mostly cloudy, 23, Sept-Îles, rain and 20. North Bay, mostly sunny, 26, Sarnia, rain and 27. Big Trout Lake, precipitation and 16, Thunder Bay, also rainy, 24. Thompson, rain 19. The Pas, mostly sunny, 22. Winnipeg, partly cloudy, 23. Dauphin, partly cloudy, 22. Saskatoon, sunny, 23. Estevan, sun and a mix of clouds, 24. La Ronge, rain and 20. Uranium City, partly cloudy, 18.
And welcome back to APTN National News. We move now to Labrador, where APTN's Angel Moore has been busy gathering the latest about the Muskrat Falls hydroelectric dam. And tomorrow is when the province is set to flood the reservoir that'll feed the dam. And it's a project Labrador land protectors have resisted for years. And this evening, they're hosting a feast to honor the traditional foods they say will be put at risk by the flooding. Right now, though, here's a preview of the story we'll be bringing you later this week.
Alex Saunders is preparing traditional food for tonight's feast. The fresh Atlantic salmon was harvested from the waters of Labrador. He worries that traditional foods will no longer be safe to eat.
You know, we've been eating traditional food for generations, and we wouldn't be here for traditional food. There was no grocery stores in our forefathers' days. And if this poisoning of the waterways keeps up, I mean, it's going to be the end of the traditional food, so consequently the lifestyle is going to change. And I don't think it's going to be for the better.
Saunders is talking about the controversial Muskrat Falls hydroelectric dam. The concern is when the reservoir is flooded, the water will pick up toxins such as methylmercury and send them downstream to the people and the animals. Tonight, people opposed to Muskrat Falls will feast on traditional foods that may be at risk to methylmercury poisoning. They are calling it a symbolic traditional Last Supper. That story is coming tomorrow on APTN National News.
Now, as noted, the story of those trying to stop this massive Muskrat Falls hydro project is one that spans many years. And so we thought we'd bring you an encore presentation of a story done by APTN's Trina Roach, just one of many reporters who've covered this issue over these years. Trina's report from October 2016 will offer some excellent background.
It was a waiting game here all day outside the gates at Muskrat Falls, with land protectors on one side, the RCMP on the other. On Monday, the police blocked access to the highway leading here. Once the road was open again, people flooded back in.
We're sitting on Muskrat Falls. We have the resource that they want. We have the power that they need. If you want what we own and what we have, you come to us, and we'll do it on native land and on native terms. And if that can't be done, no deal, no discussion, no meeting.
I'm here to protest because I grew up here and I like fishing and hunting, and I want to be able to do that when I'm older.
The impacts and the high mercury content is going to last for generations. Just, you weigh through those out, it just makes sense to clear cut.
Muskrat Falls is a massive hydroelectric project on the Lower Churchill River in Labrador. Nalcor, a provincially owned corporation, was set to begin initial flooding in mid-October. The Inuit fear the trees and topsoil left in the reservoir will create methylmercury, a toxin that will flow downstream and contaminate traditional food sources.
The amount of methylmercury that will come into our waters, our way of life will be gone. Our food subsidy, things that we've done with our people for years, and a government thinks they can just come in and take that away, and it's not going to happen.
A court injunction keeps everyone on one side of the road, but they're controlling who the RCMP let past the gates.
And we were thinking that maybe they were sending an RCMP up by the bus or sending the buses in to get them. So they gave me permission to check the buses to make sure everything's okay. And it is what they said it is. These buses are empty. Well, the first two anyway that I went aboard and observed.
Inside, around 50 people are still occupying the Muskrat site. Over the weekend, they cut the padlocks and marched past the gate, breaching the court injunction. Daniel Sims was one of those inside. He came out today because he has to go to work. The RCMP took his information, but no charges yet.
I really didn't want to. It was a hard, long decision to make. I was up all last night. I want to be in there with them. I want to keep fighting for the people who's starving for this.
He's one of us on the inside!
Sims told the crowd outside that only essential work was happening inside Nalcor operations and no construction. He said people are still in good spirits.
It's a peaceful protest. We're just waiting to hear the word, and I guess I'll wait for the forces.
But word spread that Nalcor had the court injunction expanded, naming people occupying the site, and that arrests are coming, just no idea when. People are also waiting on word of a meeting between Premier Dwight Ball and Inuit leaders in St. John's. No one's optimistic on the outcome.
This is a waiting game for us, and we're just waiting it out and trying to keep our spirits high. I guess people are worried that it's going to go the wrong way.
One thing is clear, no one here is going to give up the fight to have Muskrat Falls fully cleared anytime soon. Trina Roach, APTN National News, Labrador.
From the Atlantic to Australia we go now, home to a multimedia organization serving the people of the Pilbara, a vast region in the state of Western Australia. Known as Nada Media, it's an Indigenous-run platform for stories shared via sight and sound. APTN's Tina House recently spoke with Nada's station manager. She brings us this conversation.
Joining us today is Tangiora Hanaki. Tangiora, please tell me a little bit where you're from and what you do.
So, Tina, I'm from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm a Māori woman. However, I've been living in Western Australia for 20 plus years now, and I am the CEO manager of Ngara Media in the Pilbara. So we're an 18-hour drive from Perth in WA, and Roburn community, Iramagaru, has about maybe 1,500 people living there, but within our city, even though we're in the bush, there's probably about 20,000 people. So 40 k's down the road, there's a Target, Kmart. But anyway, where I live in Roebourne is where Ngāti Media is based, and so we broadcast through radio into 11 communities. 70% of our content is First Nations focused, and we go out of our way, we hit the road to tell the stories of all traditional owners, because we have over 10 nations within our patch, so we're very, very busy. And so my main job is to oversee the 32 volunteers and our 5 staff members, but also to chase stories daily. It's that daily grind of finding local stories that matter to our Pilbara audience.
Wow, that's amazing. Tell me what some of those stories that you've covered, and what are some of the ones that really stick out to you?
Well, Papinginia community is near Newman, which is 6 hours inland from Roebourne, and I really appreciate it when First Nations people contact us, which they do, to let us know about the issues that matter to them. And so we were able to break that story about a demolition of a home within a local town-based reserve. Now, these homes were definitely unfit for humans to be living in, and there's been a lot of consultation with state government and ministers over the years. However, when the demolition started to happen, there was no consultation, so elders were shocked. They were worried. They hadn't heard where they will be going, where are they being moved on to. And see, where we live, a lot of mining happens, so our Aboriginal people get royalties, so it's really important that they're looked after, because we're known as the engine room of Australia with all the iron ore and the resources, oil and gas that we have. So from Ngāti Media breaking that story, Ben White, who's the Aboriginal Minister for State Government, WA, apologised about that. Also the Pilbara Development Commission, who are still overseeing Papinginia, apologised for not letting the residents know first. So demolition paused, but since then we are still continuing to follow that story, and we have heard that an elder has been moved into a home, which is great news, but we'll continue to ask those questions, to be a voice for those other residents, who are still waiting to be rehomed. So really proud of that story. And many other stories, events that we cover. We were just at Karajini Experience this year, which is hosted by the Bunjima people, and I'm talking, we're in the middle of nowhere in these beautiful gorges with swimming pools, and to see an Aboriginal opera singer, Deborah Cheatham, raising her voice in amongst those surroundings has been definitely a highlight.
Wow, that's incredible. So it sounds like a lot of the stories that you cover are similar to the ones here in Canada.
Excellent. Yes, we definitely have a lot in common, Māori, Aboriginal and First Nations here, and I just think, we band together, I think we can be a stronger voice.
Indeed. Thank you very much for all you do, and thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to meet you.
And you, Tina.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's break time once again. When we return, we continue with the cultural, as a festival in Canada's capital gets set to mark its 8th year of screening Indigenous artistry. Stay tuned.
And here's the rest of your Wednesday weather outlook. High level, partly cloudy 19. Grand Prairie, wet 19. Edmonton, partly cloudy 22. Lethbridge, sunny 31. Kamloops, sunny 35. Bella Coola, also sunny and 30. Fort Nelson, some rain 19. Sandspit, some rain and 17. Rock River, a little bit of cloud 11 degrees. Whitehorse, partly cloudy 18. Norman Wells, a rainy 11. Trout Lake, rain as well and 15. Inuvik, 11 degrees and rain. Colville Lake, also rainy 8. Baker Lake, a high of 19 and sun. Cambridge Bay, 10 and cloudy. Arctic Bay, a little bit of cloud, 12 degrees. Cape Dorset, much the same conditions, 8 degrees.
And thanks for sticking with APTN National News. An Indigenous festival based in the nation's capital is about to launch its 8th year of programming. The kickoff set for tomorrow night. But it's a setting far away from the Ottawa Valley that forms the thematic backbone of this year's event. APTN's Todd Lamran explains.
Vi, you could do amazing things for your people, but you need to cut out all these distractions.
I know what I'm capable of, but you just won't listen to me.
Vi is the work of 8 female directors from 8 Pacific Islands. It's having its Canadian premiere and tells the story of one woman's life from several cultural perspectives.
Just the resilience that she shows and her pride in her culture. I think it's a really powerful film and testament to Indigenous art and beauty.
And its story of a resilient woman is a theme that festival organizer Christopher Wong followed when picking films.
There is, yes, a genocide against Indigenous women in Canada, but also Indigenous women around the world are coming together to produce beautiful art and stand up for themselves.
Falls Around Her, starring Tantu Cardinal, is another example.
It's a pretty great film about a woman who's been living away from her community for so long and comes back and kind of has a culture shock.
However, the second night on August 8th will feature gay lesbian shorts and features like Black Divas.
The thing about Aboriginal drag is you're representing all of the mob out there who don't have the same opportunities you do right now.
The rise of the right here in Canada, it's important to celebrate the diversity of voices that are out there.
The festival wraps up with the film awarded Best Canadian Feature at Hot Docs, a documentary about the lack of justice for Colton Bushy called We Will Stand Up.
An example of the ongoing systematic racism that Indigenous people face in Canada and how we really need to band together to stand together against the history of colonial racism.
The doc features Bushy's cousin, Jay Tatusis, who will be in Ottawa to lead a 1-hour discussion after the film's showing.
And my cousin comes up to me before I dance with tears in her eyes, and she said that Coco had died.
The Ansanabka Festival is not just films. A music showcase with Scylla and Rise, as well as Kelly Fraser, is another highlight. It all begins Wednesday, August 7th through to the weekend. Todd Lamran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
My name is Vasil.
And just before we go, stargazers in Australia were recently treated to a spectacular light show. This stunning time-lapse video shows the Aurora Australis, also known as the Southern Lights. The colorful display could also be seen from New Zealand. Wow. Well, that's it for APTN National News. Be sure to tune in tomorrow this same time for the latest happenings across Indigenous country. You can also catch up online via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or aptnnews.ca. I'm Rick Harp. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Up next, an encore edition of The Laughing Drum with none other than Tim Funnyman Fontaine. Take care.